UK's chief political troublemakers is at it again. Brexit cheerleading figurehead Nigel Farage has stirred up something of a hornet's nest by suggesting that NATO's to blame for provoking Russia into its war with Ukraine.
I stood up in the European Parliament in 2014 and I said, and I quote, "There will be a war in Ukraine."
Have we taken leave of our senses? Do we actually want to have a war with Putin? Because if we do, we're certainly going about it the right way. We directly encouraged the uprising in the Ukraine that led to the toppling of the President Yanukovych, and that led, of course, in turn to Vladimir Putin reacting. And the moral of the story is if you poke the Russian bear with a stick, don't be surprised when he reacts.
Why did I say that? It was obvious to me that the ever eastward expansion of NATO and the European Union was giving this man a reason to his Russian people to say they're coming for us again and to go to war. We've provoked this war. Of course it's his fault. He's used what we've done
we
as an
provoked
excuse.
the invasion of Ukraine.
Yes, and very interestingly, once again, 10 years ago when I predicted this, by the way, I'm the only person in British politics that predicted what would happen.
Farage has faced a backlash at home over his comments, mainly from his opponents in the upcoming general election.
What he said was completely wrong and only plays into Putin's hands. And this kind of appeasement is dangerous for Britain's security.
Farage's comments about Russia and Ukraine are disgraceful.
However, despite the criticism coming from the UK's two biggest parties and the Prime Minister himself, it seems the voters like what they're hearing. Farage's relatively young Reform UK party is actually polling high in third place. It's even projected to steal seats from the ruling Conservatives in the July election. Well, just for a bit of biography, Farage is the current leader and co-founder of the Reform UK party. He has been labelled the face of Euroscepticism. In fact, he led the campaign for the UK's withdrawal from the EU. We heard from John Laughland, a lecturer in politics and history. He believes that Farage's opponents are smearing him to make sure no view pierces the mainstream echo chamber.
You realise that these people, well, at least I assume, that they have not even heard this argument before. You know, they are so blinkered that they have not even considered whether or not the Western policy of expansion of NATO and the European Union might have played a role in all of this. And that is extremely dangerous. I think that it's possible that British people have a better understanding. On the other hand, in the media world and in politics, there is absolutely only one view allowed, apart from radical dissidents like George Galloway. So whether he's done this because he has his finger on the pulse, or whether he simply replied to a question, because you see, the interview on Friday, it was one of those gotcha interviews. That's what British journalists do. They think they're incredibly clever, and they put things into the conversation which they think the interviewee is not expecting. And I suspect that's what Nick Robinson was doing. He was dragging up a tweet from 2022 and thinking, haha, I'll get Farage on this one. That's what they do all the time. They're not interested in debate. They're just interested in trying to catch these people out. So whether Farage brought this up because he thinks that that's how the British people think, or whether he was simply asked the question and replied to it, I don't know. He hasn't really made, I can't say that he's made a big issue of the Ukraine war in this campaign, so I suspect it's probably the latter.